and really caught my attention was the obedience that had to take place so that the Messiah could come, so that Jesus could actually be alive and do what he needed to do to fulfill God's plan. But God needed the obedience of other people before that could even happen. I was looking back on Joseph, and Joseph not only did this whole thing with Mary happen, and that automatically would have spiraled some confusion in him, but he chose to obey the Lord with the dream that the angel gave him. And then another thing he obeyed in was taking, like, leaving their home, leaving where they're staying, and go to Egypt, taking them to Egypt to hide from King Herod and waiting for King Herod to die. And then I also think about the wise men, how the wise men told Herod, and then Herod told him, "Go bring me the baby." And the wise men went, visited Jesus, and then they had a dream or whatever from the Lord to not go back, and they still obeyed. They obeyed the Lord. They disobeyed the king's orders, technically. That's serious. I think we passed that over, but that's big. They disobeyed the king's orders in order to follow what God had said. Now, would a lot of people do that? Because now these people are like targeting. They knew this was dangerous. It doesn't really go that in depth in Matthew about just, it kind of tells you what happened, but that is dangerous. Now the king knows that the wise men basically didn't do what the king said and betrayed them or whatever. And they're like targets now. They put themselves in danger, not trying to, but just being in obedience to the Lord. And in that obedience, Jesus' life was spared and saved. But it was the obedience of Joseph and the wise men that allowed that to happen. And it just really makes me think, if there needed to be some obedience from people other than Jesus so that Jesus could come and save us, then what makes us think that stopped now? Because it's Jesus is not on earth anymore. He's alive, but he's in us. So now we're the hands and feet. Now we got to go do something about it. So if we're disobedient, other people are, their salvations are at stake. This chapter really puts in obedience of, what Joseph did and the wise men. And it should really convict us and know that our obedience matters. And when we are disobedient, it's affecting other people's lives. If Joseph and the wise men were disobedient and, the wise men got scared, whatever, and they told Herod, or, Joseph didn't believe the Lord or the angel, whatever, and stayed where he was at, Jesus would have been dead. Jesus would have died. Maybe God, we don't know what God could have done, obviously, because God's plan, but it's just to put it in perspective like that is really serious. So our obedience matters because it affects other people and their salvation, and we don't know how much harm disobedience can bring. So it's better to be obedient even if it costs us, even if it can bring fear or whatever, because at the end of the day, it shouldn't bring fear. But, all the stuff that comes with the sacrifice of being obedient. So be obedient because it is the plan of God.